Good morning, Lord Hammond.
Good morning.
You spent a lot of time with Iranian leaders, talking to them. How would you rate their desire and capacity for an all-out war with Israel?
Well, I think the Iranian regime today is a very different one from the one we were dealing with in 2015, because it's been severely weakened by the events of the last 18 months, 2 years. It is now alone and largely friendless in the region, and I think it's much weaker than it was. So the discussions, the talks that have been going on between Iran and the US, I suspect had a different flavor to them, where the regime in Iran has moved its focus from exporting its ideology to surviving. And like all autocratic regimes, when the chips are down, the number one priority invariably becomes survival of the regime. And, I would have expected that the Iranians would be keen to do a deal with the Americans. It may be that that is not inconsistent with stepping up pressure by moving to breakout point and weaponization in their program on the ground. But one person who will not be keen for a deal between the Americans and the Iranians, any more than he was keen for us to do the JCPOA deal in 2015, is Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israelis do not want to see deals done. They didn't like the JCPOA. They wouldn't like a deal now between Iran and the US. The Israelis want to see a more permanent and, as they would see it, more sustainable and guaranteed end to the Iranian program through its dismantlement, but either by military action or by regime change.
Is it your opinion, though, that the Americans can, if you like, bring the Israelis to the table, or can the Israelis simply stand in the way of a new deal?
I think the Israelis are standing in the way of a new deal. I think the actions that have been taken make it virtually impossible for the regime in Iran to reach a deal with the Americans and to survive. Their credibility at home would be shot. And the regime itself is riven with tensions. There are many different factions within the Iranian regime, many different focuses of power, if you like, IRGC, military, the supreme leader, etc. So I think that the Israeli preemptive attack has effectively put paid, at least for now, to any prospect of a deal to halt Iran's nuclear weapons program.
So with the Israelis in one corner saying that they will strike every potential site of danger and threat, the Iranians in a situation where essentially doing anything other than escalation, risk humiliation, how can it possibly be resolved?
Well, it's going to be very difficult to de-escalate the situation, and obviously that is what everybody is now trying to do. I rather agree with the comment that Emily Thornberry made a few moments ago. I very much doubt that the Israelis have got the capability to permanently destroy Iran's deep underground nuclear facilities. So they will have the ability, by destroying overground infrastructure, to slow down the program, perhaps to disrupt it for months or even years. But that isn't quite the same as permanently destroying the underground facilities. So I don't think that Israeli action alone, unless it leads to regime change, is going to permanently take Iran out of the nuclear game. And clearly, Netanyahu has effectively recognized that by calling for regime change as apparently the principal target of the Israeli action.
I've read that the one, if you like, halfway house that the Israelis might be pursuing, and I'll ask Mark Urban about this in a moment, that they may not be able to destroy the underground site, but what they might be able to do is to deny the Iranians access by destroying the roads and the infrastructure that would take troops and the scientists and so on into those sites.
Yeah, as I said, I think they can damage, slow down, maybe temporarily halt the program by destroying overground infrastructure. But I mean, the Iranians have been planning for this attack for many, many years. It would be naive to think that they won't have prepared contingency plans for either continuing to operate or resurrecting in a reasonable period of time those underground facilities. I don't know this, but I would assume that they will have multiple routes in and out, that they will have substantial underground supplies, stores, so that they can operate despite the destruction of overground infrastructure. This isn't a new idea. Even at the time of the JCPOA in 2015, this debate was going on about how much military damage could actually be done to these facilities with the weapons that were available. And we just heard that only the Americans have the bunker busting weapons that would be able to take out these deep underground facilities. I don't think we even know that that is the case, that even the Americans could do this with conventional weapons. These are very deep facilities buried under solid rock structures, and will be very challenging for anybody to destroy.
The Chancellor told me this morning that we are moving our assets into place to support our allies. Now, if you were still Foreign Secretary, what would you be, first of all, saying to the Israelis after Mr. Netanyahu's essentially, as you pointed out, direct appeal to the Iranians, essentially for regime change? And what would you be thinking about that phrase, support for our allies? How far could we go?
Well, the UK has been involved previously in purely defensive actions, intercepting incoming missiles towards Israel. Israel has perfectly strong capability to intercept missiles, but of course, these defensive systems can be overwhelmed by sheer scale of attack. And that is why in the past, allies have assisted at moments of peak threat to intercept missiles where there are multiple threats incoming. The UK has capabilities to do that. For example, using our Type 45 destroyers, air defense systems, using air-launched interception systems. We've got an airbase on Cyprus, which is close by. We've got other naval assets in the region, and we've got access to basing facilities of allies in the Gulf. So we have a number of options available to us. I think what the government will be trying to do is ensure that we have options available to us without committing to doing anything at the moment. As this story evolves, and hopefully we move to a diplomatic phase where there is a de-escalation, the UK will be in a position to be able to potentially offer or threaten to use its assets in the region to be part of an international diplomatic solution. Such a solution will be stronger if it is broad-based.
One last quick one, if I may draw on your experience also as a Chancellor. I'm sure the Chancellor wants your advice. She's going to ring you up, but you know you can offer it to her via
I'm waiting
us.
by the phone, Trevor, but it hasn't happened yet.
Well, you know, we all live in hope. The Strait of Hormuz we discussed this morning, we know that if that route is in any way interfered with, it will have an economic impact. I'm hearing right now that the Deutsche Bank, which is one of the big players here, think that the oil price could hit $125 per barrel. I don't think it's been there for quite a while, and that would be a major knock to our economic plans. Anything she should be doing to prepare?
What she should have been doing, of course, a long time ago was rebuilding our reserve. It's ridiculous to be running an economy of this size, nearly $3 trillion economy, with a £10 billion reserve in the budget. But she hasn't done that, and she hasn't got that capacity. So if there is a shock, an economic shock, we will be in a much more difficult position in responding to it. What I would just say, though, is I don't think we should get too excited by a short-term spike in oil prices. Markets operate at the margin and react to a situation like this. But it's only if this situation becomes long-term sustained that I think there's a risk that we could see serious economic disruption.
Lord Hammond, thank you very much for your time this morning.